I now have the honor of introducing our keynote speaker, your commencement speaker, David Hallal. Mr. Hallal is Chief Executive Officer of Alexion, a global biopharmaceutical company focused on developing and delivering life-transforming therapies for patients with devastating and rare diseases. Last year, he was named the company's second CEO in its 24-year history, and he is charged with leading the company to expand its position as a global leader in rare diseases through an important acquisition and the approvals and launches of 2 highly innovative products. It gives me great pleasure to welcome your commencement speaker, David Hallal. David?
Thank you, President Kaplan, for the kind introduction and for the invitation to speak here today. It is an honor to address the graduating class of 2016. You are sitting here today 4 years smarter and full of potential. Some of you have fully baked plans about what you are going to do when you leave here. Others may have all of their futures mapped out, and some of you may be less sure. But all of you, no matter what, are no doubt thinking, what's next? As one chapter of your life closes and another opens. I bet it's a question everyone has been asking you. And you know what? You'll be asked this question for the rest of your lives. But I'm here today to talk to you about asking yourselves a different question. Not what's next, but what's possible. This is the question you should be asking yourselves now and at each stage of your life. In fact, it's a question I want you to ask every day. What do I mean exactly by what's possible? Well, a person who asks what's possible does not allow others to place artificial limits on what they can achieve. She can face a situation that may not be the one she wanted or expected and ask herself, what can I make of it? Or how can I learn from it? He can examine the situation from every possible perspective and find a window of opportunity, however small that window may seem. And a person who asks what's possible is not cowed by adversity. In fact, she's comfortable being uncomfortable. She rallies from failure and can adapt to plans that change. And that's a good thing, because when you ask what's possible, you can even achieve the impossible. Now, let me tell you a little bit about how all of this worked out for me and resulted in a career that I would not have thought possible when I sat at my own college graduation 28 years ago. Like many of you, I thought I had a plan. My plan was to be in sales for a healthcare company called Alexion. I had interviewed there and was told that I'd be hired for one of the next open positions, but it could take a year or longer before that position opened. Well, graduation came and went, and the job didn't materialize. My plan wasn't working out, so I adapted it, and I took a job in an entirely different industry than I had ever imagined. That job found me in sand and gravel pits, literally. I got a job working for Motorola, selling radio systems to family-owned construction businesses. I was asking them to invest their money to buy a new system at a time when cell phones were emerging. My customers didn't take me seriously. They looked at me as a kid straight out of college, and I could see them wondering, does he even know what he's talking about? It was intimidating, and I failed a bunch. While it wasn't the job I had wanted, I became really good at selling that radio system, and I started to learn the value of listening. This is how I overcame the doubt I saw in my customers' eyes. Then nearly 6 months later, Alexion called. A territory opened up, and I was back on track, following my plan to work in healthcare. I had always been interested in healthcare because growing up, My parents would tell me that prior to the discovery of many medicines, families often only relied on hope and prayer. I was drawn to be a part of that and to help change the world. I was selling medicines for diabetes and kidney transplant rejection and other diseases. And again, I encountered a lot of failure. I'll never forget one of my first customer meetings with a physician known as Dr. Yi, and it was terrible. After my long-winded introductory monologue, he simply stood up and left without saying a word. What did I do wrong? I realized I didn't ask questions to learn about what was important to him and how I could help. Quickly, I learned that less talking, thoughtful questions, and active listening would help me find answers for customers. And by applying these principles in my first full year on the job, I became Salesperson of the Year. And then in 1991, Fortune magazine reported on a fast-growing biotech company named Amgen and its new innovative medicine for people with cancer. The biotech revolution was underway, and I wanted in. But it seemed Amgen wasn't interested in me. They were looking for people with a minimum of 10 years of experience, and I had only 3. Instead of thinking what's next and that I needed 7 more years before I could work there, I asked, what's possible and why not me? So I pursued that very small window of possibility. I was granted an interview and boldly stated that what I lacked in experience, I possessed in learning agility and determination, and I got the job. But I didn't just want the job, I wanted to be the best at it because patients' lives were at stake. To be successful, I learned as much as I could. I participated in every cancer conference I could find, morning, noon, and night. Within a few years, I had opportunities of greater responsibility to turn around several poor-performing businesses of increasing size and scope. Each time I took over one of these businesses, I asked the same question, what's possible? Over time, some of my colleagues started saying to me, we may all work for you here someday, and I can honestly tell you that was not part of my plan. But I remember thinking, why not? Could this lead to something really big? That something turned out to be Alexion, a company that is always driving to do the impossible. As this started with our founder, Dr. Lenny Bell, he founded the company with a focus on always what was possible. He was a medical professor at Yale, very successful and on the track to tenure. He was passionate about research and entrepreneurship. At about the time I was sitting in my first Amgen training class, Lenny was in a grocery store convincing his friend of the wisdom to start a high-risk biotech company while buying chocolate chip ice cream. By the time Lenny and his friend returned home to their very young families, they decided to start Alexion right here in New Haven. Lenny spent the next few years researching the body's immune system. By 1995, the company almost closed without producing any successful drug candidates. Having experienced failure after failure, Lenny was determined to not give up. And then a breakthrough, the discovery of our first drug, Soliris, to treat patients with PNH. This is potentially a deadly blood disorder that affects only several thousand people worldwide. Finally, Alexion was a viable company. I joined Lenny in 2006 to deliver Soliris to patients suffering with PNH around the world. But we had another huge obstacle. PNH was so rare that most physicians had never heard of it. The physicians I had come to know during my years at Amgen were skeptical. They claimed they had never seen a patient with PNH, and there was no way our business was going to be successful. How could we convince them to see the unseen? Once again, I was faced with adversity and the possibility of failure. So what did we do? We asked what's possible. We educated the medical community. They needed to know that what appeared to be routine stomach pains could actually be a dangerous symptom of this deadly blood disorder in young people. We faced a lot of skeptics, and it was uncomfortable, but our science was world-class, and we were determined. And finally, the medical community was convinced to look at their patients differently. Imagine if we believed the skeptics and had given up and said, why bother? I am proud to say that we have saved many lives. Just last week, I received an email from a father of a young woman who is graduating high school and on her way to UCLA. Several years ago, she received a diagnosis that could have killed her. Her kidneys failing, and she was bedbound in the hospital. But she started taking Solaris, and 4 years from now, she'll be sitting where you are this afternoon. I've shared a lot with you today about my journey, and I've done so because I want you to embrace adversity, skepticism, and failure, and look at them as opportunities that will put you on the path to possibility and success. Whenever you find yourself asking what's next, replace that question with what's possible, and remember these 3 things. First, be determined. You will always face reasons to give up. Most sane people do give up because it is so hard to succeed. I didn't really want my first job, and many times I wanted to quit, but I was determined to succeed so I could eventually apply it to a job that I did want. Second, be different. Don't be afraid to chart your own course. If you believe in yourself when most others do not, go for it, even if it's a little risky. At Alexion, we focus on patients with diseases that are so rare that they are overlooked on a daily basis, but we never give up. It takes conviction and courage to do things differently, and this is how you create new opportunities for yourself and for others. And third, be uncomfortable. When you are faced with new challenges or opportunities, you will always feel uncomfortable. But focus on the possibilities of success rather than failure. As Stephen mentioned a little over a year ago when I was asked to be Alexion's second CEO, that made me uncomfortable. Part of my discomfort came from the fact that I was following by any measure one of the most successful CEOs in biotech history. However, I used a powerful exercise that has served me well many times in my career. It entails making 2 columns on a sheet of paper and listing the reasons why you can do something and the reasons why you can't. Then you cross out the why you can't column and focus entirely only on the reasons why you can. Before I end, I want to share a message with the parents here. You've earned the right to celebrate because of the support you've given your children. You're excited for them and a little nervous too. You're stepping back and watching your children, fresh with their accomplishments, forge their own path as young adults. I can relate a little. My oldest son, Jonathan, is graduating from high school. He's off to college in the fall. I'm both excited and anxious for him. And like you, I'm proud of him because his accomplishments are all his own. And that leads me back to you, the graduating class of 2016. Your accomplishments are all your own. You've already been doing many of the things that I've talked about here today. You've been determined, even at times when circumstances may have prompted you to want to give up. You've done some things differently to earn your diploma, and you found a new threshold for your comfort zone. Congratulations, you have achieved something that at times may have seemed perhaps impossible. Thank you for letting me share this moment with all of you, and never, under any circumstance, stop asking yourself what's possible. Thank you.
Thank you, David. That was an amazingly direct and very elegant talk and certainly resonated with me, and I'm sure with all of our graduates. It is now my privilege to recognize the honorary degree recipients who will be presented in the order listed in the program. I have the privilege of presenting David Hallal for an honorary degree. The citation reads as follows. David Hallal, you are the visionary leader of a biopharmaceutical company that has been ranked among the most innovative companies in the world. As Alexion's second CEO, you were selected last year to succeed the company's founder, who lauded you for helping to foster a culture of innovation during your first decade with the company. You joined Alexion as a vice president in 2006 and led the successful introduction of Solaris, the company's first product for the treatment of 2 ultra-rare, life-threatening genetic blood disorders. Later, you were named the company's first chief commercial officer. An executive with 25 years of experience in the biopharmaceutical industry, you previously spent a decade in influential positions at Amgen, one of the world's top independent biotechnology companies. In recognition of your forward-thinking management of Alexion's global growth initiatives, your visionary work at several leading pharmaceutical companies, and in recognition of your ability to create an atmosphere that promotes ingenuity, you have been duly recommended by the selection committee of our Board of Governors to receive an honorary degree. By virtue of the authority vested in me by the university's Board of Governors, I confer upon you, David, the degree of Doctor of Humane Letters, honoris causa. Congratulations.